Welcome this afternoon to Appian Portals, the front door to your applications. My name is John Rogers. I'm from the product management team at Appian, and I'm tremendously excited for what we're going to get to talk about in the next half hour together. I'm going to go fast because there's a lot of ground to cover. We're going to look at, first and foremost, your organizations, the needs you have and why they inspired us to build Appian Portals, how we see Appian Portals being useful to the needs that you already have. We're going to talk about how portals actually work, and we're going to build one here in this talk in just about 3 minutes. Not 3 minutes from now, when we get there, it's only going to take about 3 minutes. We're going to see a fully fledged portal and walk through what using it would be like, and it's going to be one that I think is possibly usable and useful to maybe literally everyone in this room. And finally, we're going to hear about a real customer portal and talk about what's next for you and your organization. So let's dive right in. Your organization needs to work with so many people. Your work doesn't just happen with inside your organization with your employees or maybe with your business partners. It encompasses contractors, prospects, people who are going to be employees but they're not yet, they're still onboarding, maybe citizens, members of the general public. And there's no clear black and white line for where your work with those external audiences is delineated from the work that you're doing with your own internal folks. You need to work flexibly across all audiences that your work touches. And that's what motivated us to build Appian Portals. That's why we call them the front door to your organizations, the opening that gives access to anyone that you need to work with. It doesn't require that they have a user account already. It doesn't require them to log in to do work to get the experiences they need to participate in what your organization does. We wanted to allow for that flexible work with any audience, but we wanted to make sure that it was done with the same low-code tools that you build the rest of your applications with, so that not only are you using one set of skills to build these solutions, but that your users have a seamless experience even if they start their journey in an unauthenticated manner and end it as a logged-in user. They can have one consistent set of experience. You've got one system holding and working with the data that they've entered over the course of that experience. And finally, you want to do all that with the benefits that low-code is already bringing to your authenticated applications. Especially for a public experience. You want to make sure that you don't have to worry about security. You don't have to worry about some of the unwanted attention that comes with any public web page with the bot traffic or attempts to kind of break into your organization. And with all of this put together, we wanted Appian Portals to be the key for your organization to solve your problems in a single tool that provides end-to-end process automation, no matter what work you need to do, no matter who you need to do it with. How are you going to use it? This is just a sampling, a bit of a brainstorm, if you will, of the kinds of things where portals might make sense to needs that you already have. If you imagine something like contractor onboarding, onboarding by its nature contains the possibility that the person or organization won't onboard, that you will decide through the course of that process not to work with them further. And so using portals for that experience allows you to not have to provision user accounts for them up front, to actually go through the onboarding and approval process before having to provision a user account because you've decided you are going to work with this contractor, you are going to have a relationship with them. And maybe it's something a little bit more lightweight. You just need to gather some data, but that data is going to live in Appian, be worked on in Appian, and you don't want to only be restricted to gather that data from people who can log in. Or maybe you simply have some data that lives in Appian and you need an easy way to make it public. I could keep reading the ideas on this slide, but when I look at this, there's a categorization that I see that I'd like to share with you. Buckets that these ideas fall into that I hope will serve as further brainstorming for you to spark ideas for your own needs and see where they fit with portals. And that's these three categories. One is a workflow that your organization needs to do that is initiated by someone outside your organization. And this is perhaps my favorite place for you to look for your first Portals idea, because Appian has been good at workflow for 2 decades already. You're already serving some of your most important workflows with Appian, but maybe that solution has been a little incomplete because you need an extra piece for that beginning part of it that starts outside your organization. And so you might have a ready-made opportunity already to extend that solution to become a fully Appian solution from end to end, to remove that friction of where external data comes into your organization. The second category is when you need to make data publicly available. This could be, if you imagine a financial institution that oversees mergers and acquisitions, or a government institution that gives out grants and aid. Either of those is likely legally required to make public the information about what they're doing in that work. And especially where Appian is already managing that work for you and the data is already in Appian about those mergers or about those grant applications, an Appian portal is going to be the fastest, easiest, and best way to take that information and fulfill that legal requirement of making it publicly available. Finally, as I mentioned, you might simply have a need to capture data and documents. You've got a workflow that's already in process, and it hits one of those exception flows, and it needs one more document. The best person to get that document from doesn't have an Appian account. Portal can be a lightweight, easy way to involve them without having to go into another tool. So that's the why of Appian Portals. That's why we wanted to build it. That's why we wanted to add it to our platform capabilities for that end-to-end functionality. How did we build it? How does it work? What does it do? Fundamentally, portals are extending the power of Appian SAIL to new audiences. SAIL, many of you already know, is our patented UI framework, and it manifests many of the values we have at Appian. It bakes in any Appian experience you see, or your users see, was built by an app developer using Appian SAIL. And SAIL bakes in user experience into the process because we know that it's not enough for your solutions to be functionally complete if they're not intuitive and easy to use and also pleasant to use. We want you to be able to build these experiences with the power of low code, the speed of low code, but not giving up the flexibility to beautifully brand everything that you build, to reflect your brand in every experience and have that done consistently across the entire ecosystem of experiences you're responsible for, not all of which are built with Appian. You not only need Appian to be branded, but to look like some of the other experiences that you're making. You know that your users aren't just using desktop web browsers. They're using mobile browsers. They're on native mobile apps. And SAIL gives you those experiences for free. You build once, and you can use it on any of those platforms. And finally, our UI architecture bakes in the attributes that you need to run your mission-critical processes on Appian. We bake in the highest standards of scale, reliability, and security. You'll experience this inside Appian in our interface design experience, which is one of our major design components that app developers use. This is where they drag and drop to lay out your user experiences, and every time you save here, save any change that you've made, it's instantly available, not just on the web, but in a mobile browser or in a native mobile application. So like I said, Appian Portals takes the power and flexibility and beauty of SAIL and extends it outside the Appian platform. When you design an Appian portal, when you define the interface, the experience that it's going to provide and publish it, what happens next is that we gather up those interfaces. We also gather up the other objects that they use, like in integration with some third-party service or business rules, and we package them together. And we take that and make that package into a standalone serverless web application that lives separately from the authenticated Appian environment. This is why portals are public. This is why they're unauthenticated. They are a separate web app from your authenticated environment. And this is what gives that UI layer of your solution the ability to be its own microservice with the scaling benefits that you expect from that. But just being a UI, a public interface out in the internet is not sufficient. You need data and workflow. And so portals seamlessly connect back to the Appian environment that published them for any data and workflow needs you have. They connect to your automation fabric, and we'll see that in one of the demos later. We'll see the workflow that a portal is kicking off. So that just because you've created this public web app as an experience for users who aren't logged in doesn't mean that those users are in any way separated from the rest of your Appian systems or have the ability to benefit from your other applications. Finally, portals being deeply integrated into Appian benefit from our DevOps capabilities. Appian is a DevOps native platform. That means no matter what you're doing with Appian, you're using DevOps just by the fact that you're building in our platform. That means for Appian Portals, you have the ability to build, test, monitor, and deploy them completely within the Appian platform in the same way that you already expect for all of your other design objects. Your CI/CD processes and pipelines, you'll be able to have the same expectations for how those work with portals that you do with other Appian objects. When you deploy an app to a higher environment or deploy it to production, your portal will go along with that and be published automatically. It's not a separate step, it's fully integrated. And these are just some of the benefits of the latest release of Appian. Appian 22.4 was released this past Friday, and it continues to improve and speed up the experience of building and deploying portals. It finishes the story of fully integrating portals into our DevOps features. And it adds new features on top of it. You might remember Malcolm in the keynote mentioning progressive web apps. That is a feature of the 22.4 release and gives your users the ability to not just access a portal through their mobile browser, but to download it to their home screen and open it in an app-like experience. Okay, I've talked a lot now. I've told you a lot of things. Let me show you next. Let me show you how quick it can be to build your first portal. And I'm going to ask you to have patience as I hope that I get this part right. What you're seeing here is the home screen of our design experience. If you're not familiar with it, there's a couple quick actions at the top. The main content is given over to a list of the applications. And on the right, there's contextual information that links you into help materials or the larger community. We're going to start with a new application, one of those prominent actions right at the top of the screen. And as I create this, several things are going to be done automatically for me. It's automatically going to set up the security rules that are the best practices for every application. And from the first moment that I land in my new application, before even letting me see the main screen, it asks me, hey, where do you want to start this application? Do you want to start with data and build a record type? Do you want to start with workflow and build a process model? Or do you want to start with user experience and build a site or portal? And when I select that, I'm going to see guidance on what will help me choose between making a site versus making a portal. I'm told immediately a site is a user experience for your logged in users, while a portal is going to be available to anyone with the URL. So I go ahead and make that, if I can type without any errors. And after making that, you'll see that I get the same automatic security settings, although here what is being secured, this tip at the top tells you, in case you didn't know, in case you didn't have me to tell you, that we're just talking about design time security settings for your developer team, because the portal is public to anyone with the URL. As we go into the portal design experience, we see that right now it is blank because there's been no interface configured for it. And I'm able to go right into saying, well, let me make an experience for that. Let me make the UI on the fly. I'm allowed to do that in line. I don't have to backtrack to start from some other screen. And if I have a typo in my interface name, like I just did, that's something I can correct later. Here is that interface design experience that I mentioned earlier. I could start by dragging out any of these interface components to begin building my UI from scratch. But here I'm actually going to start from one of our templates. And pick one called Account Setup that shows a nice looking experience. And not only that, it's actually a responsive one. As it happens, this laptop screen is actually a little bit too small to show the widest screen experience for this, which would actually automatically relay out the screen and show a nice splash image of a building to automatically adjust for what to do when it has more screen real estate. I'll go ahead and save this, and back in my portal, it automatically begins showing the experience that I've configured. I can go down here and work on my branding. Let's just do something nice and easy visual, like changing the button rounding. I'm shown those changes live so that I don't have to publish just to make sure that I've gotten those changes to be accurate. Finally, I'm going to toggle this to be published. I'm ready to make this live at a public URL. I can see here and edit. This is the URL that it will be shown at. It's not linked yet because it's not actually published. And when I click save, it goes ahead and begins publishing that portal. Now, we are making an entire web application. We're automatically provisioning infrastructure for that serverless web app to run on. This takes a couple of minutes. It takes about 5 minutes. So I'm not going to have you look at this screen for 5 minutes. I'm actually going to jump ahead a little bit. This is, as I said, the first couple minutes of making your first portal. I wanted you to see that the guidance that we have in the designer to make every developer successful. But now I am going to jump ahead to talk about a complete portal. And as I promised earlier, to talk about one that is maybe one that any of your organizations have use for. We are here in Europe, and all of you, I think, are familiar with GDPR and know that any individual has the right to reach out to your organization and ask to see what data you have on them or ask for that data to be deleted. And this is that first category I mentioned earlier. This is a workflow that starts outside your organization because this request can be quite complicated for you to fulfill. You have to go to every system owner that holds data and ask them to look for data on this person, report back, collate the results, and tell this individual what you found. It can be a painful and slow process, but not with portals. This is the process model that we're going to kick off. This is not a mock-up. This is a screenshot of the actual process model that this application runs that kicks off the request, saves it in the system, fans out and distributes tasks to all the system owners, holds the data centrally, and ultimately emails the original submitter when that request has been completed. So let's look at what they will see. And we'll see how a live demo for this one works. This is an Appian portal. What I've loaded up here is a URL that anyone can open. It's not, I didn't log in ahead of time. This is a public URL. You might put it on your website if you want to advertise that you have, this is where you would log a privacy request. You don't need very much information because what you do when these come in is they're keyed to where you have this person's email address. So now you all do get to see my email address. But that's okay. That's good for you to reach out to me with questions later. The most common request is going to be deleting my data, but if someone has a different kind of request, they can just tell you more details about it. And when I click next, you might have noticed that there's a milestone here on the left that this is not the last step. I actually have to enter a code that's been emailed to me right now. So this is the moment where we wonder if the live demo is going to work. Drum roll, and I have an email here. I'm not showing it on the screen because I would rather you all didn't see my full email inbox. But why am I getting a verification code? Well, I don't want you to ask them to delete my data. I need to demonstrate that this is actually my email address before you go off and delete data for it. So I've been sent a verification code to prove, yes, this is my email address, and I really do want you to delete the data. And if I get it wrong, it will catch that. So this isn't, again, this is a real app, not made up. And when I submit it, in addition to this screen, I've gotten an email saying, thank you, you've submitted successfully, you'll hear back from us within 30 days. Meanwhile, let's switch personas and go over to the legal team. Inside the organization, let's see if I can click on the correct tab here. There we go. This is the kind of screen that the legal team will see. This is a screen these are logged in users, these are members of your organization in your legal department, and this data flows into Appian the second someone submits in the portal and is immediately available to this authenticated application for them to see all of the requests that are happening. If I were to drill into these, you could see the status details inside each one. I could switch personas again and show you a system owner and the task that they receive to delete data. I'm not doing that mostly because I'm watching the clock and I'm a little bit shorter on time than I'd like to be. But rest assured, this is a very real and complete application. It's actually one that Appian is going to begin using in the next week or two for our own data privacy requests that our legal department receives. It was built by Suvajit Gupta, our head of engineering, and Jed Fauner, one of our other engineering leaders. And after a few weeks of our legal team using it, their plan is to put it on the Appian App Market, where you might get a chance to use it for your organization as well. Early reviews from our legal team have been rave reviews. This is a process that for them was a lot of emails that they were manually tracking, that took weeks, and has gone from weeks down to a matter of hours, and is just a joy to use for them. So I believe I have taken the requisite 5 minutes where I can come over to here, and we will see that this updates to say, yes, it is now published, so that 5 minutes passed while we were looking at another demo. And if I open this URL, this is my public URL that shows that interface that I specified. So just a couple of minutes to make that. Now, like I said, this is the first step in the process. You'll want this to also be connected to data and workflow in your organization, the same way as you saw with that completed portal. But what I've shown you here is both how easy it is to get started and the kind of results you can get from a working application. But I'd like to take the last few minutes of my time to go one step further. Not just those first steps of development and how easy and guided they are, not just that working app that we've made at Appian and are planning to share and how good it can look, but a customer story and how they've been successful with Appian. The Association for Retired Persons is a US nonprofit that serves over 40 million people, anyone 50 years or older. And one of their important functions is supporting those folks who have been a target of fraud. It's an unfortunate truth that older folks are at much higher risk of being targeted for fraud. And internal to AARP, the team that runs the fraud victim program came to their IT team, and that team leader was not having a good week or year. And it's easy to understand why. Every day she and her team work with people who are having the worst day of their life. They've just lost their retirement savings. And this team leader is trying to make the best of the tools she has to run a volunteer team to support them. And her tools aren't very good. She says, I just need somewhere, give me a SharePoint site where I can host a PDF. I just need to be able to give this handbook PDF to everyone. That's all I'm asking. That's all I can imagine getting from you quickly, because I know IT projects take forever. And the IT team said, can you give us 4 weeks? Can we have 4 weeks and see what we can do? And in 3 weeks, they came back with this portal. And it does have that red link in the middle that you might be able to see is a link to download the PDF, but it's also an entire sign-up process for people who want to contribute to working with this fraud team, to spend their own volunteer time helping those victims recover. And this is if I may say so, I can because I didn't make this. This is a beautiful UI. And it's just a form, and it's just a splash page, but you all work in software and you know that these things aren't taken for granted. They're not automatically coming with every piece of software that you build. And then when you're working with someone who's having the worst week of their life, the last thing that you want them to do is to get slowed down because something was unintuitive or because they made a mistake the first time. So not only is this much more than that fraud team asked for and is making their operations easier, it's actually giving the IT team at AARP more credibility, because now when someone comes to them and says, I don't even want to ask you for this because you're going to take a year, I'm just going to go get my own tool, they can say, no, give us 4 weeks, give us 6 weeks. And it's allowing them to build the credibility they need to centralize operations and make them consistent, because they're able to get buy-in from their own internal teams better. That's the speed of Appian and the speed of Appian Portals and what they can do for an organization. We're coming to the end of our time together, and I won't have time here at the end to take questions from the stage, partly because I really wanted to show you all three of these stories. I will be available after the session. I'll be here over on the side for a few minutes, then probably out in the hallway so that we can make sure to clear the room for the next session. But I want to tell you a little bit, remind you what we covered today. That we built Appian Portals because we know that you need to connect with a variety of audiences, and you need a flexible boundary between where your work with external and internal folks begins and ends. We showed you, and I built in front of you, a portal within our design experience to show you how fully integrated and guided we have made that for new developers who are learning portals and are learning how they differ from sites. We saw a working portal for data privacy requests and showed how not only does it link into your automation fabric, but it seamlessly provides an experience where external submitters and your legal team and system owners are working off of the same data in the same system. And finally, we saw that great story from AARP and how the speed of portals is improving their fraud team's capabilities. So, what do you do next from here? If you're a new customer or a prospect, I hope you'll consider signing up for one of our community edition sites. They're free to anyone, and all of them are enabled with Appian Portals. So you can walk out of here today and begin experimenting with Appian Portals right away. If you are an existing customer, I hope you'll upgrade to 22.4. Appian Portals is available on cloud as of 22.1, but I showed some of the newest 22.4 features in these demos, and I hope that you'll upgrade to take advantage of the latest and greatest. And finally, for the remainder of the conference, you can visit our community hub to learn more about portals or any other questions you might have. Thank you very much for your time today.